The story starts off with a boy named Hibiki, who is running for his life through an empty valley while being chased by a horned rabbit. He has no idea how he ended up in this situation or what is even chasing him, so the whole thing feels completely out of nowhere to him. He wonders to himself what kind of creature that is, and then suddenly hears a soft female voice that looks the creature up and tells him it is a level 1 horned rabbit. He has no idea what the voice is, but he tells it not to go anywhere because he is scared. The rabbit suddenly leaps at him, but he manages to dodge out of the way and lands on top of it, crushing it to death. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, an elf girl is seen making her way through the trees when an unknown male voice guides her path, telling her to keep heading east because there is something very precious waiting for her there. Meanwhile, Hibiki is relieved that he made it through the horned rabbit attack, but he still has no idea where he is or what that voice was. On top of that, he checks his phone and sees he has no signal at all, which kills any hope of calling for help. Just to keep himself from losing his mind, he decides that the voice was not real and he was simply hearing things. He starts to feel a little hungry and thinks about eating the horned rabbit, but quickly talks himself out of it since he has no idea whether it is even safe to eat. The voice then speaks up and looks over the body, letting Hibiki know that the horned rabbit is actually a great delicacy that goes great in stews. Hearing that, he decides he will just take it with him for now, even if the idea still grosses him out a little. He starts to think more about this strange voice and notices that it only seems to speak up when he asks something, so he starts testing it out by asking about random things like his backpack. The voice responds that it's a bag made of materials that do not exist in this world. He continues asking with different things, and the voice responds each time with a clear and accurate breakdown of whatever he asks about. Realizing this, Hibiki wonders if the voice can look him up too, so he asks, and a screen appears in front of him showing all his stats. He looks through everything and sees that details like his name and age are all correct. But what throws him off is that it lists his job as Appraiser provisional, which makes no sense to him since up until now he was just living the normal life of a high school student. He then speaks up and asks the voice who she is, and she replies telling him she is his status support, but that she is not able to share anything that counts as personal information. Hibiki does not think that sounds fair at all, but what lifts his spirits a little is seeing just how many skills there are for him to learn. He thinks the expert skill sounds interesting and tries to use it right away, but nothing happens. He then decides he will just start the tutorial since that seems easier, but the voice speaks up and tells him the tutorial is already running. Hibiki has no idea what she means by that, so he just moves on and tries out the world map skill, which brings up a holographic display in front of him. He takes a good look at it and realizes it is not actually a map. It is just tracing the path he has already taken. This is when he figures out that he has been walking in circles the whole time. With that cleared up, he uses it to guide himself and keeps moving. By sundown, he spots a road below him, but he gets a little too excited and trips, landing face first on the stone path. As he sits up, the voice announces that he has just earned the title Castaway in an ice sky. Hibiki is thrown off by that, but he quickly realizes he has bigger things to worry about as a giant monster towers over him. He thinks it is all over, but then a magic arrow shoots in out of nowhere and drops it instantly. He looks over in shock and sees it was the work of an elf girl standing on a rock nearby. Just before he makes contact with the girl, the voice activates his speech so that he can speak and understand the language of this world. After Hibiki thanks her for saving him, she introduces herself as Emilia. Hibiki takes one look at her ears and figures she looks like an elf, so he tells her he really likes her cosplay. Emilia has no idea what he is talking about. She then asks him what he was doing out in the Maze Eater's grassland, and Hibiki just explains that he sort of appeared there out of nowhere, which leaves her stunned. The voice then runs a full appraisal on Emilia, and Hibiki is shocked to find out she is a real elf. He looks through her stats a bit more, and what surprises him even more is that she is actually 56 years old. Emilia explains to him that the Maze Eater grassland is actually a monster that disguises itself as an open field. It does not attack directly, but simply waits for its prey to wear itself out from wandering around lost, and then consumes it. Hearing that makes Hibiki realizes just how close he came to being eaten. Emilia then pulls Hibiki into a hug and tells him he held up pretty well for a young boy. She does this because she thinks he is about 10 years old, but when he tells her he is 16, she immediately lets go and says she had no idea someone his age could be in such a small body. Hibiki. Night falls shortly after, and they set up camp, where Hibiki learns that in this world, you are considered an adult the moment you turn 15. After finishing off the horned rabbit for dinner, Hibiki asks Amelia where exactly they are. She immediately spits her tea straight into his face at hearing such a question. She then wipes his face while apologizing and tells him they are in the kingdom of abridged. Hibiki tells her he would not know that because he comes all the way from Japan, but she has never heard of it, which only confirms to him that this really is another world. Amelia figures he must be feeling lonely being so far from home, so she tells him she will take him to the city tomorrow, and Hibiki is grateful for that. As Hibiki sleeps, Amelia watches him and comes to the conclusion that he must be the precious thing the spirit told her about, and shortly after that she drifts off to sleep as well. Hibiki begins to dream about his past life and recalls a warm memory with his three closest friends, Amane, Kyoyuko, and Teiki, at the diner where Amane works. These three meant a great deal to him, even though they never missed a chance to point out how short he is for a 16-year-old. After that, his dream shifts to how he ended up in this world. It was the last day of school just before summer break, and he was about to walk into a classroom when a sudden bright flash of light hit him, and the next thing he knew, he was here. He wakes up from the dream and checks his phone, thinking about how worried his friends must be right now. He then looks up at the sky and spots some glowing green shapes floating above. The voice looks them up and tells him that it is a special protective barrier that Amelia set up to keep watch over the area. He takes that in and accepts that magic is real in this world, which means he truly is in another world. He decides to check on his own situation and asks the voice what being an appraiser provisional actually means. The voice explains that it is a job assigned to him by God and carries a rarity rank of B. It comes with the appraisal ability, which lets him identify the abilities and traits of any target. However, it does not come with any combat skills, which is why it is classed as a non-combat job. Hibiki is still wrapping his head around all of this, so he just decides to go back to sleep. The next morning, Amelia wakes up and thinks back on how she saved Hibiki the day before and spent the night out here with him. Shortly after, Hibiki wakes up as well, and the two of them hit the road and head for Lowell, the nearest town. As they make their way through the forest, Amelia tells Hibiki it will take them about a day and a half to arrive. She also mentions that there are monsters in the area, but tells him not to worry because she is there to keep him safe. She is impressed that Hibiki was even able to sense them, and he tells her it is all thanks to his world map skill. Amelia is stunned to hear that he has the world map skill since it carries a rarity rank of AAA. But when Hibiki tells her he is an appraiser provisional, she does not sound very impressed and treats it like some kind of joke. Hibiki does not understand why the world map skill is such a big deal since all it does is show where he has been and whether any monsters are nearby. Amelia is floored by how he cannot see how useful that is for staying alive. Hibiki then pulls up his world map and asks if anything dangerous is close by, and it flags that a crystal horned rabbit is in the area. Amelia lights up at hearing that because crystal horned rabbits are extremely rare and can easily sell for up to 200 gold coins. She immediately grabs Hibiki and tells him to lead her straight to it. They track the crystal horned rabbit from a distance, and Amelia uses her magic to cover their sound and smell so they are harder to detect. Hibiki is blown away by this and tells Amelia she is amazing, but she tells him right back that he is the one who is amazing because of his world map skill, and that any adventurer party would be lucky to have him. Since appraisal is a non-combat job, if he ever joined a party he would just let the others handle the front line fighting while he stayed in the back and offered support. Amelia really wants to form a party with Hibiki but does not want to come across as too desperate, so she decides she will just show off her skills and let Hibiki be the one to ask her. She picks up her bow and gets ready to shoot, but Hibiki notices she has no arrow. She explains that her job is spirit archer, meaning she can shape arrows out of wind and fire them. She sends a spirit arrow straight at the rabbit, but it manages to dodge at the very last second, which leaves her stunned. Amelia figures there is no catching it now because it has an escape skill that lets it dodge attacks at high speed. But the moment Hibiki finds out that it cannot use its skills while it is in the middle of attacking, an idea comes to him. If he can get the rabbit to come at him, Amelia would have a clean shot. Amelia is not convinced such a straightforward plan would work, but Hibiki tells her not to worry because when he appraised it, he found out it is not very smart. While the rabbit is out in the open, a stone wall suddenly shoots up in front of it, startling it. It then spots Hibiki lying on a rock and takes the bait without a second thought. Just as it lunges to attack, Emilia lines up her shot and drops it instantly. Emilia is genuinely surprised it actually worked. All it took was putting up rock walls to cut off every other path and funnel it straight at Hibiki, though it also means the rabbit saw Hibiki as completely harmless. The voice then alerts Hibiki that his skills have leveled up, which confuses him since Emilia was the one who landed the kill. Emilia explains that he used his appraisal skill throughout the whole thing and even put himself out there as bait, so he earned the level up because he played a real part in it. Meanwhile, up in heaven, the god who brought Hibiki here is pleased with how he is doing so far, but reminds himself that this is still only the tutorial, meaning Hibiki still has a very long road ahead of him. The scene then shifts to the Adventurer Guild, where a girl named Ivel has just finished registering as an adventurer. The receptionist points her toward the job board, but Ivel tells her she already has her first quest lined up. She is going to be searching for something very special. Meanwhile, Hibiki and Emilia arrive in the town of Roel, and the moment they get there, Emilia throws a cloak over Hibiki because his clothes stand out way too much, and she does not want them drawing unnecessary attention. She figures he will be able to pick up some proper clothes after they sell the crystal rabbit's horn and get their money. She estimates they should be able to walk away with around 200 gold coins, which would be more than enough to also grab some armor and new weapons on top of that. Hibiki has no idea what a gold coin is actually worth, so he quickly checks with his status, and it tells him that 1 gold coin is roughly equivalent to 10,000 yen, which genuinely stuns him because that is a significant amount of money. Emilia looks over at Hibiki with a concerned expression and tells him that while they are in the city, he needs to stop acting so clueless because there are people here who would not think twice about taking advantage of someone like him. But hearing her talk to him that way only makes Hibiki even more convinced that she really does not have any friends. After that, Emilia takes Hibiki over to the Adventurer Guild, and the adventurers inside take one look at the two of them and assume she picked up a babysitting job. Emilia tells them that as much as it might look that way, Hibiki is actually an adult and is even a registered rookie. The leader of that adventurer group just tells everyone to stop giving the new guy a hard time, and they all move on, after which Emilia tells Hibiki that their party goes by the name the Silver Banner. They then head over to Jewel, the receptionist, and Emilia tells her that they have an item to sell and asks her to kindly get a room ready for them. Meanwhile, Hibiki cannot stop staring at Jewel's cat ears, completely fascinated as he realizes she must be some kind of beast folk. After that, they all head in to sit down with a guild master, and the moment Hibiki lays eyes on him, he is genuinely blown away by how muscular the man is. The guild master then dramatically tears his shirt clean off and introduces himself as Dilliard. Emilia starts to slowly lose her patience watching Hibiki gush over Dilliard's muscles, so she hits them both with a blast of ice-cold water, which immediately snaps them back to their senses. Once that is over, they all sit down and Jewel formally introduces herself as the receptionist and vice guild master, after which she asks Emilia what she is looking to sell. Emilia lays the crystal horn out in front of them, and Dilliard is clearly impressed, pointing out that it is even larger than the one from 3 years ago. After thinking it over for a moment, he puts forward an offer of 400 gold coins. Hibiki hears that and is thrilled, realizing it is twice the amount Emilia was originally hoping for. But to his complete surprise, Emilia says that she will not accept anything less than 800 gold coins. Her reasoning is that the horn they sold 3 years ago went for 200 gold coins, and this one is 3 times the size. The two of them go back and forth on the price for a while until Dilliard reluctantly agrees to settle on 700 gold coins, which leaves Emilia pleased. But Jewel suddenly shifts and gives off an intimidating presence as she calmly reminds Dilliard that the price he agreed to is well above their budget, so she is simply going to take the difference straight out of his salary. Dilliard does not look the least bit happy about that. Later, Hibiki sits by himself in the guild while his status support informs him that his tutorial skill has met the requirements to level up. Hibiki still has no real understanding of what the tutorial even is, so his status support pulls up a definition and explains that it is a skill given to those whose chances of survival are very low, and that it allows them to receive guidance from God so they can pick up the knowledge and skills they need to stay alive in this world. Hearing that, Hibiki realizes that it is all thanks to God that he has managed to make it this far, and he quietly thanks him for it. That is when he hears hears a voice respond, telling him that the thanks are appreciated. Hibiki figures he must be imagining it, but the god continues speaking to him through his mind, telling him that he is the one who brought him to this world. Hibiki is surprised to find out he can actually communicate with him directly like this, and the god tells him that this is not something he is able to do all the time, and that it only happens every now and then. He tells Hibiki that everything from here is still entirely in his own hands, how he chooses to live and how he manages to stay alive. And after saying that, he says goodbye, but Hibiki calls out to him with a long list of questions, and it is already too late. The status support then tells him that now that his level has gone up, the support provided by the guide will be coming to an end. He wonders for a moment what it means by the guide, but that is when Amelia walks over and calls out to him. Just then, Meter comes over to Amelia and hands her a letter, telling her she has just received a designated request. After Amelia reads it over, she turns to Hibiki and apologizes, telling him that she has to leave town right away and that she cannot bring him along this time either, because this is a request that came directly from her hometown and she simply cannot say no to it. Hearing this, Hibiki realizes that Amelia was the guide all along. Meanwhile, Ivel is deep inside a dungeon, still searching for the thing she has been chasing after for a long time without any luck. She suddenly gets a feeling about where it might be and turns around to head there straight away. At the same time, Amelia is quietly worrying about whether Hibiki is going to be alright on his own, and he tells her not to worry because he is actually planning on becoming an adventurer. He found out that there are quests available for non-combatants, and he is genuinely excited about the idea. Hibiki also acknowledges that Amelia has done so much for him up to this point, and he does not want to be any more of a burden to her than he already has been. When the time finally comes for them to go their separate ways, Amelia tells Hibiki that he can stay at the inn she has been sleeping at, and then she places the map in his hands before heading off. Just before leaving, Hibiki says he wants to return the cloak to her, but Amelia tells him not to worry about it and to just think of it as a parting gift. But Hibiki tells her she probably needs it more than he does right now because the button on her shirt just popped off. Amelia turns red with embarrassment and quickly scurries away. As she rushes off, she runs straight into Ivel and stops to apologize for bumping into her. When a knight nearby comes over to ask why she is in such a hurry, she replies that she has to get back home on short notice. Amelia helps Ivel back up and Ivel asks if her hometown is the Elf County, the kingdom of Fairnote. After Amelia confirms that, Ivel tells her what a coincidence it is, because that happens to be exactly where she is heading as well. Meanwhile, ever since Amelia left, Hibiki has spent most of his time sleeping. He picks up his phone and realizes the battery has completely died, and he still has not found any way to get back to his old world. On top of that, God has not spoken to him at all since their last conversation, so he is starting to genuinely question why he was even brought to this world in the first place. Then all of a sudden, Tanya, the woman who runs the inn, comes into his room and tells him she has been worried about him because he never came down for breakfast or lunch today. Hibiki tells her he is fine, and she is relieved to hear that. She also lets him know that dinner is going to be ready soon, and Hibiki tells her he will be right down. After she leaves, Hibiki starts to feel the pressure because all the money he has left is what he got from selling the horn, which means he is going to need to find a job before long. But given what his stats look like, he finds himself wondering what he would even be useful for. His status support pulls up his numbers in front of him, and they are not great at all, so the status advises him to stay away from solo combat. However, it also points out that he has picked up some technical skills, including contract and medical book. Hibiki thinks the medical book skill sounds interesting, so the status explains that he can absorb knowledge from it by reading through its pages. It also advises that he read every single page if he wants to reach a higher level, but warns him that once he starts reading, he cannot stop partway through. Hibiki is a little taken aback by that condition at first, but decides to go ahead with it anyway. The reading of the medical book begins and knowledge suddenly starts flooding into Hibiki's head all at once, which completely catches him off guard. Meanwhile, Ivel and Amelia continue making their way toward the Elf County, and Amelia tells Ivel about how she just cannot stop thinking about Hibiki and worrying about whether he is going to be alright. Ivel assumes this means she has feelings for him, but Amelia shuts that down straight away, pointing out that she literally just met him and that he is about 40 years younger than her. Just then, a maid up ahead calls out to Amelia, and the moment Amelia spots her, she runs runs over and throws her arms around her. Emilia explains to Ivel that this is Stalia, their chief maid. Emilia then introduces Stalia, and Ivel gets excited and asks Emilia to form a party with her. Emilia lights up at hearing her very first party request, but Stalia looks anything but pleased about it. A few days later, Hibiki finally completes absorbing the knowledge from the medical book. Although he looks completely worn out, he remembers that he still needs to go shopping, so he heads to the armory to pick up some armor. After finishing and stepping back outside, he takes a moment to acknowledge just how brutally difficult it was to absorb all that knowledge from the medical book. He realizes that picking up skills in this world is not an easy thing in general, and that different skills all have their own different ways of being learned. He also comes to appreciate just how lost he would have been without his status support by his side. So he decides that he cannot keep referring to her as just his status and gives her the name Sapo instead, since that is a lot easier to say. When he arrives at the guild looking for work, a badly wounded adventurer is carried inside, and when Hibiki gets a good look at him, he realizes it is the same guy he ran into the other day. His companion calls out in a panic, saying he took a hit from a silver ruby wolf and that he is certain Dilliard would be able to stop the bleeding. But then he staggers and they both go down to the floor, which causes the wounded man's leg to start bleeding out all over again. Jewel tells them that Dilliard is not in town at the moment, but that they could try using some other form of healing magic on him. His companions do not think that is going to help much since they have already tried everything they could think of. Hibiki looks over the situation and figures that the bleeding needs to be stopped right away. He decides that since he took in all that knowledge from the medical book, he should be able to do something here. So he walks over and asks them to let him take a look because he has a medical skill. Sapo runs a quick examination and estimates that the man has about 5 minutes left to live. He has been infected with Dirith poison and has lost 2 limbs, which means the treatment is going to require both the hyper cure and perfect heal techniques. Hibiki thinks it should be fairly straightforward, but he immediately runs into a problem, which is that executing the full treatment requires 650 mana points while he only has 56. Hibiki quickly realizes that knowing how to perform the treatment means nothing if he does not have the mana to pull it off, so he starts thinking hard about what he can actually do here. Sapo then suggests he make use of his contract skill, through which the people around him can enter into an agreement and transfer their mana points directly over to Hibiki, so he has enough to carry out the treatment. Everyone around agrees to the contract without a moment of hesitation and begins sending their mana his way. Once he has gathered enough, he leads with the hyper cure to flush the poison completely out of the man's system, and then follows it up with the perfect heal, which releases a bright blue beam of light. When it is all over, the adventurer is lying there with both of his limbs fully restored. Hibiki is relieved that he pulled it off, but collapses shortly after. In his dreams, he sees his old friend Amain telling him how foolish it is to act on his own and put his life on the line for others like that, especially when there is no clear goal or reward involved. She tells him that there is no guarantee there will always be someone around to come and save him, so he needs to start being more careful. At that moment, Hibiki jolts awake in a daze while Sapo announces just how much his skills and levels have leveled up. Jewel comes over to him and thanks him for saving the man from earlier, revealing that he is actually her younger brother, Jade. Hibiki is puzzled by this since Jade is human and she is not, so Jewel simply explains that they have different mothers. That aside, Hibiki tells Jewel not to thank him because he was only able to pull it off because everyone around him lent him their mana points. Jewel acknowledges that, but also points out that without him being there, Jade would absolutely have died. So she sincerely asks Hibiki to accept her gratitude. With that settled, Jewel tells Hibiki that she has put a gag order on the whole situation because the fact that he is able to use both hyper cure and perfect heal is something completely unheard of, and if word of this gets out, it is almost certain that someone will try to take advantage of him for profit. Because of that, Jewel suggests that Hibiki consider joining up with a party, since being around friendly combatants would be a lot safer for him. Hibiki thinks it over for a while and is not fully convinced, partly because he is not sure how much longer he is going to be staying in the city and he does not want to drop that kind of problem on someone else. He doesn't deny that having people to rely on would be nice, but he doubts it would work out since he is a non-combatant. Jewel then tells him that there is another option available to him, which is to simply hire a bodyguard. The scene then shifts to a wolf man in inside a cell, sitting beside a little girl as he declares that he will tear apart anyone who dares to lay a hand on her. The next day, Hibiki heads over to the Debbie company to hire a bodyguard and is introduced to the owner, Ajarthan Debbie. But the moment Debbie gets a proper look at Hibiki, he immediately starts fawning over him because he can smell money on him. As it turns out, he has a skill that lets him pick up a pleasant scent from people who are either already wealthy or likely to become wealthy in the near future. Hibiki is then presented with several muscle heads to choose from as potential bodyguards, but he turns every single one of them down, not because they lack strength, but because none of them have enough MP. When it really comes down to it, he wants to be able to make use of the hyper cure and perfect heal skills from the medical book, and that requires a bodyguard with sufficient mana. Debbie tells Hibiki there are plenty of other options available to him, but just then Hibiki receives some advice from God suggesting he go and find one on his own. Debbie begins leading Hibiki toward the next set of choices when Hibiki notices a dark corridor off to the side. Debbie tells him that while there are some options down that way, he would not recommend any of them since they are not really suited for regular work or combat. They were not able to return to their homelands, so Debbie simply let them stay. Hibiki wonders if they might be in a similar situation to his own, so he asks Debbie to take him down there. Hibiki is led inside and finds a wolf beastman that appears to be standing guard over a young girl. He is curious as to why they are locked up, so Debbie explains that the beastman went on a rampage trying to protect the little girl. The girl has been found to have magical abilities, but she has no control over them yet, so they tend to burst out on their own without warning. With that in mind, Hibiki tries to appraise them both and is surprised to find that some of their stats have been hidden. Sapo informs him that their stats have actually been falsified and suggests he use his expert eye skill, which is the highest level appraising ability in the world and was given to him directly by God. Hibiki uses the expert eye to reappraise them and discovers that the beastman's name is Claude and that he is a hero sitting at level 95. As for the girl, her name is Lillian and she carries the Raging Sanctuary status, which means her soul is connected directly to the realm of the gods. Hibiki thinks it over and realizes that both of them have more than enough MP, but he finds himself wondering whether he is actually allowed to bring a hero and a sage along with him. God then speaks to him and tells him to do whatever he pleases. That aside, Sapo suggests that Hibiki make use of the technical skill known as relief measure. Sapo does not really give much of a proper explanation as to why he should use it, but Hibiki figures it could be a skill designed to help Claude out by lifting whatever curse has been placed on him. Hibiki makes up his mind and decides to go ahead and purchase them both, and Debbie lets out a loud squeal of excitement because the scent of fortune coming off Hibiki just got a whole lot stronger than it was before. After that, Hibiki takes Claude and Lillian out to an open field, and Claude immediately starts wondering what on earth he is planning to do with the two of them. But Hibiki just tells him to calm down and relax because he is actually there to heal him, which leaves Claude completely stunned to hear. He does tell Lillian, however, that he is going to need her help in order to make the whole thing work. Claude suspects this might be some kind of trap or trick being played on them, but Lillian just tells Claude to stop overthinking it and be quiet, pointing out that he has always been the one doing the protecting and saving for her entire life. So this time around, she wants to be the one to save him for a change. Hibiki explains to Lillian that in order to pull this off, he is going to need a large portion of her MP, and that she will also need to agree to a contract with him first. Lillian agrees without even a moment of hesitation and immediately transfers her MP over, which gives Hibiki everything he needs to activate the perfect heal technique. Claude's missing limbs are fully restored, and every single one of his wounds are completely mended as if they were never there. Lillian is absolutely overjoyed at the sight of this and runs straight into Claude's arms and holds him tight. Claude then expresses how deeply grateful he is to Hibiki, saying it is almost unbelievable just how weighed down and heavy he felt only a few moments ago. Hibiki tells him that it was most likely all because of the curse that was placed on him, and Claude is genuinely taken aback hearing that because information about his curse should be completely hidden and out of reach even to someone with an appraiser skill. Hibiki also tells him he's a hero, and then tells Lillian that she is going to go on to become a sage at some point in the future. Claude is left completely baffled as to how Hibiki could possibly have access to any of this information. So Hibiki explains that God personally gave him the expert eye skill. That piece of information makes Claude shudder and shock because he knows fully well exactly what that skill is and what it means. Hibiki then gets straight to work on trying to lift the curse that has been placed on Claude and activates the relief measure skill. But to both his and Lillian's complete surprise, Claude is suddenly wrapped up tight in a set of heavy chains out of nowhere, and then a giant pair of scissors comes descending down toward him. At first, it looks as though Claude has just been stabbed, which shocks both Hibiki and Lillian, but it turns out he is still very much alive, as those scissors came down and cut through one of the chains that had been weighing him down all this time. Claude takes a moment to take stock of how he feels and realizes that while he is nowhere near back to the full level of strength he once had, he can already feel a good portion of it beginning to return to him. He then bows his head respectfully toward Hibiki and sincerely apologizes for the rude way he behaved toward him earlier. With all of that said, he tells Hibiki that he wishes to perform the ceremony of allegiance with him. Hibiki has absolutely no idea what that even is, so Claude takes the time to explain that it is a sacred ritual in which he devotes his very soul entirely to Hibiki and swears before everything to always remain by his side no matter what may come. Sapo then speaks up and suggests to Hibiki that he make use of the contract skill for the ceremony of allegiance, since contracts have the power to hold all parties to the promises they make. This means that if both he and Claude enter into a contract together, they are absolutely bound to follow through on everything they have agreed to. Hibiki thinks it over and decides it does not sound bad at all, so he agrees to go ahead with the contract. The contracting process gets underway and Claude pledges his full allegiance to Hibiki, and after Hibiki acknowledges it and accepts, the contract is successfully formed between them. A mark then appears on both of their wrists, which turns out to be the crest of the light spirits, and it stands as a symbol of the loyalty and commitment they now share with each other. Lillian watches the whole thing unfold and is absolutely delighted by it. Meanwhile, Amelia, Ivel, and Stalia continue making their way along their journey, and after traveling for a while, Amelia suggests they stop at a hot spring to get some rest for the rest of the day. Stalia loves the idea at first, but after thinking about it a little more, she starts trying to talk Amelia out of it, because stopping at the hot spring would mean they would have to bathe alongside Ivel as well, and she does not want Ivel getting any closer to Amelia than she already is. But despite all of Stalia's efforts, Amelia still says she wants to go to the hot springs, leaving Stalia with no choice but to accept defeat. Meanwhile, Hibiki gives Claude and Lillian a full rundown on why he needs to draw MP from others in order to use his perfect heal skill, and they both take it all in and understand the situation clearly. With that settled, they all go ahead and execute a sharing contract together, which causes Hibiki's technical contract skill to level up as a result. Claude then notices that Hibiki has been quietly mumbling something under his breath throughout all of this, so he asks what exactly that is all about. Hibiki explains that it is simply a voice that helps explain things to him and keeps him guided along the way. Claude immediately freezes up, and a look of shock crosses his face as he realizes that what Hibiki is describing is the tutorial skill, one that is granted directly by God himself. Claude also puts together that this must mean Hibiki has come from another world entirely, and Hibiki is genuinely surprised to find out that Claude already knows about the existence of other worlds. Hibiki then asks Claude whether he is alright with the fact that he comes from another world, and Claude replies telling him that it makes no difference to him whatsoever and that it does not change his loyalty to Hibiki in the slightest. After that, they continue on their journey, and Claude tells Hibiki that the god he is connected to is most likely the chief god. In this world, there are around 11 gods in total, and the chief god is considered to be the very first among them. The tutorial and expert eye are divine blessings that can only be given out by him and no one else. That aside, Claude believes that the chief god has truly set his sights on Hibiki and taken a genuine interest in him. However, Hibiki finds it hard to believe that if the chief god were to turn his attention to anyone, it would be Claude and Lillian instead of him. Even so, he cannot help but wonder why the chief god would give Lillian the Raging Sanctuary skill, since it sounds like quite a harsh thing to burden someone with. Neither Claude nor Lillian have ever heard of it, so Hibiki goes ahead and explains that it is a skill that tears through her with an enormous and overwhelming amount of power. Hearing that sends Lillian into a state of shock, which immediately makes Hibiki regret bringing it up in the first place. However, Claude then speaks up and says he doubts it was the chief god who gave Lillian the Raging Sanctuary skill to begin with. He thinks thinks it was more likely the god of magic, since anything related to magic falls under her area of responsibility. The chief god suddenly gets a little nervous as the god of magic makes her presence known and speaks directly to Hibiki, telling him that Lillian is certainly suffering because of the raging sanctuary skill, but that the problem is once a skill has been added, it cannot simply be removed. She also tells him that he possesses her skill known as Grimoire, and that with it he has the ability to adjust Lillian's MP and overall magic power to help manage things. She also makes a point of telling him not to get the wrong idea, because she will not be around to help him out every single time he needs something. Hibiki takes from this that when he activates the Grimoire skill, the administration system will kick in on its own and handle things automatically, so they should be just fine from here. Hibiki passes the good news along to Claude and Lillian, and they are both deeply grateful to hear it. But just then, Sappo informs Hibiki that both his expert eye skill and his tutorial skill are temporarily out of service, which means Sappo can only assist him using the information she has already collected up to this point. Meanwhile, the god of magic takes a long hard look at Hibiki and cannot shake the feeling that she has seen him somewhere before. That aside, Hibiki goes ahead and uses his Grimoire skill, which summons an adorable little cat who announces that she is here to teach Lillian about controlling her magic, and introduces herself as Veen. But Lillian is so completely overwhelmed by how cute Veen is that she immediately starts petting her without a second thought. Hibiki then asks Veen about the Grimoire, and Veen informs him that she herself is the Grimoire, and also a mighty sacred beast created by the god of magic. This puts Hibiki at ease, and he reaches over to give her a gentle pat on the head. This, however, makes Claude get jealous, and he immediately speaks up, making it very clear to everyone that Hibiki has not yet given him a single pat either. Meanwhile, Amelia, Ivel, and Stalia are seen relaxing together in the hot spring, and Stalia finds herself completely caught off guard by the size of Amelia's chest before snapping herself back to attention. Amelia then asks Stalia what important mission her father has sent her out on, but Stalia tells her that she does not have any details about it just yet herself. Amelia then turns to Ivel and asks if she would mind helping rinse her back, but Ivel flatly tells her no, which makes Amelia chuckle to herself as she realizes the two of them have not quite become friends yet. Stalia then pipes up and tells Amelia that she is coming on far too strong with Ivel, since simply washing each other's backs is not something that automatically makes two people friends. Ivel overhears the whole exchange and a small smirk crosses her face. She then stands up and tells Amelia she will help rinse her back after all, which catches Amelia completely off guard, but Ivel simply replies that this is just what friends do. The next day, Hibiki takes Claude out to shop for weapons, and while there, Claude ends up choosing a spear. Hibiki is surprised by this choice because he always imagined that heroes usually use swords as their main weapon. Claude says that a spear is actually easier for him to use based on his body type and fighting style. He also talks about his armor and says that he usually focuses on avoiding attacks instead of taking them directly, so as long as the important parts of his body are protected, that is enough for him. He adds that he does not want to wear too much armor because it would make him feel too hot and slow him down. At the same time, Lillian also picks out some new clothes for herself. When the merchant tells them that the total price is 25 gold coins, both Hibiki and Lillian are shocked because it sounds like a very large amount to them. However, Claude treats it as something cheap and pays the amount without hesitation. Seeing this, Lillian starts to feel guilty about buying the outfit because of the cost. Hibiki notices this and tells her not to worry about it. He explains that her safety is far more important than money, so she should not feel bad about it. After that, Hibiki tells Lillian that she should also choose a staff for herself. Even though he knows he is already low on money, he still encourages her. He realizes that seeing her smile makes it worth it for him. At that moment, Veen starts to feel left out and asks Hibiki to buy something for her as well. Hibiki agrees and buys her a cute collar, even though this decision puts him even deeper into debt. After finishing their shopping, they all go to an open field. There, Veen says she will give them a basic lesson in magic. She believes Claude should already be fine because he is a hero, but Hibiki and Lillian do not have the basic qualities that heroes usually have. Because of this, she tells Hibiki to rely on his grimoire instead. Hibiki does not understand what a grimoire is, so he asks about it. Sappo then explains that a grimoire is a special technical skill with a rarity rank of A. It allows the user to gain gain different kinds of knowledge and abilities related to the magic system of that world. Hibiki immediately gets excited and starts wondering if he will finally be able to use magic. However, Veen quickly shuts down his excitement by telling him that he will only be able to use simple household magic. Even so, they move forward with the training. Veen suggests that they should begin by helping Lillian gain control over her magic. She explains to Hibiki that in order to do this, he needs to be registered as the one responsible for her magic output. When Hibiki asks how that is supposed to happen, Veen simply bites his hand and says that is enough to make it work. After that, Veen walks over to Lillian and explains the plan more clearly. She says they will reduce the power of Lillian's magic down to 10% and then slowly increase it over time as Lillian learns how to control it properly without losing balance. Next, Veen turns to Hibiki and tells him that he needs to learn magic circulation. She explains that to properly use magic, a person must be able to control the flow of their magic power with precision. She introduces an exercise called magic power circulation. In this exercise, two people hold hands and pass their magic essence between each other, and the goal is to control that flow without losing stability. Even after hearing this explanation, Hibiki still does not understand what she is talking about. Veen is clearly pissed off by that, so she just says they will start by having Claude pass a small amount of magic into him so he can experience it directly. She warns Claude to be careful because Hibiki does not have a strong resistance to magic and could be overwhelmed easily. Claude agrees and begins passing his magic into Hibiki. Almost immediately, the sensation becomes very intense. After a few seconds, Hibiki suddenly finds himself in a strange empty space. That empty space slowly changes into a forest under a starry night sky. Hibiki looks around and then turns toward a body of water nearby. There, he sees an elf girl. She looks back at him and calls him Claude. At that moment, Hibiki realizes that he has somehow taken on Claude's appearance and identity. He tries to stay calm and acts naturally, then walks over and sits beside her. As this happens, Hibiki also begins to access Claude's memories. From those memories, he understands that the girl's name is Anastasia. He sees that Claude has known Anastasia since childhood and that they spent most of their time together growing up. Their bond was very strong, and Claude believed that things would always stay that way. However, the memory shifts, a war breaks out, and many lives are lost. Among those who died is Anastasia. The memory shows clearly that this moment was deeply painful and traumatic for Claude. Suddenly, Hibiki wakes up back in the real world. At first, he still believes that he is Claude. Claude quickly speaks to him and tries to bring him back to reality, reminding him of who he really is. After some time, Hibiki finally regains his senses and returns to normal. He then wonders why he believed he was Claude in the first place. Veen explains that it happened because he sank too deeply into Claude's consciousness while the magic was flowing through him. Claude apologizes to Hibiki for letting too much of his magic pass through him. Veen immediately scolds Claude, reminding him that she clearly told him to only send a small amount and to be careful. Later that evening, Hibiki is busy mopping the floors of his room as part of his training for household magic. Household magic is a type of magic used to help with everyday tasks and simple activities. However, in order to learn it, a person needs the help of spirits. When someone releases magical energy while doing normal chores, those spirits slowly gather around that energy over time. Once they are satisfied, they will respond and teach that person how to use household magic properly. Hibiki has been doing these chores for quite a while, but he has not received any response at all. Because of this, he starts to question whether the method is actually working, or if he is just wasting his time. He continues anyway, hoping something will happen. After some time, Claude and Lillian arrive at his room. As Claude walks in, he accidentally knocks over Hibiki's mop bucket, spilling water all over the floor. Claude quickly apologizes and begins cleaning it up. However, Hibiki tells him not to worry about it. He even says that Claude looks cute when he is clumsy, and hearing that makes Claude feel embarrassed. As time passes, Lillian begins to improve and slowly gets better at controlling her magic. Seeing this, Claude suggests that Hibiki should also try some practical training instead of only doing chores. Hibiki responds by saying that he does not even know how to use a sword. Claude tells him not to worry about that and instead gives him a bow and arrow to try. Hibiki then attempts to shoot at a target several times, but every single shot misses badly. No matter how many times he tries, he fails each attempt, showing that he still has a long way to go. Meanwhile, In the forest, Amelia is traveling with the others while thinking about how Hibiki is doing. As they continue moving forward, they arrive at a crossroad. One path leads to a shortcut, but Amelia suggests that they should avoid it. She explains that there is a ruined fortress ahead, and according to rumors, the souls that haunt the place play tricks on anyone who comes near it. When Ivel hears this, she becomes excited instead of scared. She immediately shows interest and starts walking toward the shortcut. She suggests that they should go and check it out, treating it like a fun adventure rather than something dangerous. Amelia is very desperate to keep Ivel as her friend, so she agrees with her suggestion. Because of that, all of them decide to follow Ivel's lead and head toward the shortcut. However, Stalia can already tell that this decision is likely going to cause problems, and things likely won't end well. Meanwhile, Lillian helps Hibiki prepare some food. After they finish cooking, all of them sit down together to enjoy the meal. However, the food turns out to be completely inedible. This happens because Claude was careless and forgot to properly clean the mushrooms and other ingredients before cooking them. Because of this, they realize that Claude is not very useful outside of combat situations. Claude quickly defends himself by saying that his lack of skill in other areas is because of the curse placed on him. This makes Hibiki curious, so he asks Claude if he knows who cursed him. Claude responds by saying that he does not know who is responsible for it. Later, while Hibiki is washing dishes by the river, Sapo suddenly informs him that he has gained a new skill called Bubble Wash, which is a form of household magic. Sapo then suggests that Hibiki should check his world map. When Hibiki does this, he sees that a rushing boar-type monster is heading straight toward their location at high speed. As the monster approaches, Claude steps forward with confidence. He uses his spear along with his precision strike technique and defeats the boar quickly and easily. After killing it, Claude points out that the smell of blood could attract other monsters to their location, so they need to deal with the body immediately. But Lillian seizes this opportunity to use her water magic and demonstrate what she has learned so far. She then activates her odor isolation skill to remove all the blood from the boar, leaving it completely clean. With that done, Claude says he will now teach them how to properly butcher a monster. Meanwhile, after Amelia and the others arrive at the ruined fortress, Ivel uses her magic mirror to observe the area. She is able to tell that the place is filled with many restless souls. At the same time, Amelia suddenly cries out in excitement because she believes she has found a large amount of treasure. However, when Ivel checks, she realizes that it is not real treasure. Instead, it is a magical gas that causes people to see illusions based on their deepest desires, making both Amelia and Stalia fall into a daydream-like state. Ivel then uses her magic to deal with the situation. Back with Hibiki and the others. After they finish butchering the boar, they are all dirty and covered in blood. Hibiki decides that this is the perfect time to test out his new bubble wash skill. When he activates it, soap bubbles shoot out at high pressure and hit Claude. After the bubbles disappear, Claude is left completely clean, even cleaner than before. He also mentions that the bubble wash seems to have refreshed his body and restored some of his strength. That was episode 4. Subscribe to not miss the next part and watch the next video on screen.